Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Let's talk a little bit about author communities, professional communities, um, audience and self marketing, as well as your career as a new author. This is slightly based off a Twitter thread I did a while back because I kind of trashed the writing community on Twitter. I think it's mostly useless. It's people talking about writing and not doing the writing, talking about querying publishers rather than doing that or ever publishing anything. I don't have a ton of respect for like the writing community tag, but someone asked me in a very honest question like, well, what do I do as a new author? How do I build momentum and attention and community going into my first book? So I wanted to answer that again in video format because I think this is good advice for anybody that's a little bit new to this business about what they should expect and about how to conduct themselves on social media and how to gain followers, gain some traction, gain some fans as you go along. So I broke it down to 3 areas: professional, community, audience, and career. So the first one is, what do you want from a professional community? People want different things, and I'm not going to say you're wrong for wanting one thing over another thing. It just kind of depends what you want. A lot of people want emotional support, and that's okay. What they want is someone to say, go get him, Tiger, or you're doing great, don't quit now. That's the most important thing that they want from a professional community, is other people to kind of root them on and to support their emotions. Man, I just feel like I'm so useless today. You're not. You keep at it. If you want that good, positive emotional support, that is an option. You may want technical advice. And keep in mind, a community of writers and authors will have mixtures of these, but it depends what you want, what you're going to seek out. If you're wanting, emotional support, technical advice, or like professional advice or marketing support, those are the 4 little mini categories there. So, and if you want emotional support, look for other people that are like you. So these are going to be up and coming authors. These are going to be people who share your mindset, who probably share some of your lifestyles or political goals or whatever. Those are the people that you're going to get along with. Those are the people who are going to want to give you emotional support and want to receive emotional support in return. If you're looking for technical advice, you got to find a community where there's a lot of established authors, because they'll be able to tell you, oh, this is how you do this thing here. This is how you format a letter. This is how you format your manuscript for like a submission to a magazine. This is how you do your categories on Amazon, things like that. There's a lot of little technical advice that goes into how to like market your book, as well as technical advice like how to write a book. Like, here's what you should do for your subplot, or here's a good way to write a protagonist. Here's a good way to tag dialogue. All that's kind of technical advice. Professional advice would be like, how do you manage your books? How do you find an agent? Do you publish yourself? How do you format those things? How do you find somebody that's going to do that for you? How do you find a cover artist? How do you find any of the author services that you want without like losing all of your money? So that professional advice can be really useful. And again, you just seek out a group of authors where there's more established personalities that can tell you that if you have any questions. And the last one is marketing support. So one of the big mistakes authors make is they group up with other indie authors and start, tweeting their books. Most of their followers are indie authors. Most of the people they follow are indie authors. None of those people are your customers. That's a problem, right? So getting on Twitter and having a little writer circle where you retweet each other, it kind of only very tangentially flows out into a greater audience that might be interested in what you're doing. Real marketing support between authors is like list trading and things like that. And there's not a lot of that gets done now. I never trade my list because I just think that would upset people that are on a list to get an email from some other author that's maybe somewhat related to the genres that I write. I write in multiple genres. That's another problem. It's like, people who read me, they may like fantasy, they won't read my horror stuff. They may like horror, they're not going to read my fantasy stuff. They may like science fiction, they're not going to read my fantasy stuff, right? So there may be aspiring authors, right? They're people who want to be authors, and so they read my creativity articles and my Keys to Prolific Creativity book, in which I say never be an aspiring artist, just be one. They're not going to be that interested in the fantasy stuff because that's not part of their little market segment. They don't really care about fantasy. So one of those big mistakes that people make with professional groups is they think that they'll get marketing support from it, and that's really only going to happen with very advanced authors that have big lists where they can cross promote across lists with authors that are in a similar genre. So if you're wanting marketing support, you should definitely look for authors that are in the same genre as you. Other science fiction authors, if you are a science fiction author, other romance authors, if you are a romance author, because their followers may actually just be fans of the genre and of them. And so there's some useful stuff for cross promotion. The thing is, if everybody that you follow and who follows you is a new indie author, there's not going to be a whole lot of customers following them around. So how do you list trade? Well, you already have to have a big list. Sorry. So again, this is something that tends to go with more advanced stuff, is marketing support. I would say don't worry about marketing support too much early on. You need to build a body of work, which I'll talk about later. Okay, so audience. Finding the audience is incredibly difficult now for many, many, many reasons. Amazon is crowded with books. Amazon is not going to show your book to your audience. The categories on Amazon are helter-skelter. They're redoing them all right now, but they're still all over the place. The truth is, Amazon used to be very good about recommending books to people that they would actually want to read, and has gotten really terrible at it now, to the point where it's very difficult to find a very specific book you would like to read on Amazon, where you're putting in the exact author and title, maybe even the ISBN, and it still won't show you that book and shows you a bunch of unrelated ads that you don't want to see. You're like, I want to read this book by David Stewart, and you see a bunch of like Marvel Comics ads, and you're like, I don't want. Where is he? Maybe he doesn't act. Maybe he unpublished his books, because they're not showing up on the Amazon search. So finding an audience is actually very difficult. So I have a couple of pieces of advice for finding an audience. It's really hard to stand out in the crowd. It's really hard to get the attention of a person and then persuade them to buy a book. So the first piece of advice for finding an audience is to actually, before you write your book, decide on what the audience that you want is. So rather than trying to find an audience for your book that you already written, you write a book for a specific audience. In other words, you write to market. You find a micro niche and you write a book that fulfills that, and then it's really easy to market to those people. You can run ads that target them on Facebook and other places like that using Facebook tracking pixels. You can get really good at advertised marketing if you have a highly niche product and you can identify the audience that's going to go with that. So a lot of times, especially new authors, they write what they're passionate about, and there's nothing wrong with that. But keep in mind, it's very difficult to find an audience after you have written the book, but it's much easier to find an audience before you write the book. You write a book for the audience that you think is there, the demographics, the expectations, and the microgenre that you think happen to be there. So the next thing with marketing is really how do you get eyes to see your stuff without spending money on advertising? The truth is, with Amazon, you got to spend a lot of money on advertising to get eyes on your page. And if it doesn't have a lot of reviews, it's not going to sell well, right? So in my opinion, Amazon ads are not even remotely worth it unless you have a lot of reviews. The rule of thumb used to be 10. 10 is like a bare minimum. You really need 100, 1,000. Now, if you're like, how do I get 1,000 reviews? I don't even have 1,000 reviews on anything. I only have like one book with 100 reviews. So it's really hard to get that huge amount of thing, but that's something that people see. Is lots of people have read this book. Maybe it'll be something that I like. And at that point, you're way ahead of the game. You don't need to watch this video anymore. Here's a really good way to attract an audience, is to make free content, which is harmonious with the demographic that you're pursuing. So let's say that you are writing a space opera book. Pretty easy to figure out what kind of content people who might buy space opera books like, right? You can make content on Babylon 5 or Star Wars or Star Trek or like any of the popular science fiction franchises. They're going to get eyes on you either on a video or on a blog article that you write, and is then hopefully they're going to think about buying your book. Fiction is so much harder than nonfiction, though. The easiest thing that you can do with content marketing is, if you're selling a nonfiction book, is to write articles that are just related to the book that you're selling. So let's say you wrote a diet book, a book on how to create a great diet to lose weight. So you just write lots of articles on how to diet and link your book, and then promote those articles by spamming social media and just having them exist. If you have a lot of good SEO keywords, things that are trending, you can actually get a lot of eyes. So if you notice like a diet trend, you could quickly type up an article about how that diet trend is garbage, and instead you should read my book to get the skinny on how to really diet. So whatever the fad diet is that pops up, you do that. So that kind of content marketing, it's really a slam dunk for nonfiction. It can take a while for it to kind of have momentum. And then you can have even a deeper funnel with your nonfiction, where your nonfiction exists to sell a service which you provide. So you have a diet book. You write articles to get people's eyes on the diet book. The diet book is a bigger buy-in, but it has deeper information than what's on the blog, tables. And then you sell through the book private diet consultation services, where you can charge $50 an hour or $100 an hour or $150 for a 30-minute session or something like that. And so people go through that. You have free content. They get information that's useful from it. They feel grateful. They want more information. They buy your book. They feel like the book is useful, but they want to buy in further, and then they hire you to do something. So I use diet as an example. Could be psychology. You have you write a bunch of psychology articles on a psychology topic that you are an expert in. You have a book on that topic, and then you offer therapy, offer online therapy. Boom, there's your funnel. So selling through content, that is a free way to do it, and it's one of the most long-lasting and effective ways that you can actually market your fiction and attract eyes and attract attention onto what you're doing. Fiction is always harder than nonfiction because it doesn't have that nice like funnel where someone's looking for a solution to a problem, and you have to kind of convince them that the book that you wrote will fulfill their expectations. But you can still do it, So one thing that you can think about, like with content marketing as well, is actually politics. This is one that a lot of people say, stay away from politics. Politics is actually one of the easiest ways to market whatever you happen to be selling. Anything that you want to sell. You can sell toothpaste with politics. I have seen it on Twitter. People who have political posts will then say, buy my toothpaste or something like that, right? Yeah, you can sell anything with politics, because what the drive to buy something from you, if you're doing something political, is not really that the item itself is going to fulfill their expectations directly, but rather they want to support you as a person. They like you as a person. You're saying the right things. You're doing the right things. I'll buy the thing from you in order to support you. This works really well. There's so many examples. There's almost too many to list. I think one of the ones that I always see popping up is Eric July made a comic, and people really bought it because they're buying something from him, not because they think the comic is really good. If his name wasn't on it, no one would buy the comic. Why would they, right? So it's a buy-in because of the personality, and because people agree with that person politically, and they think that person is good politically. They will then buy the product that's associated with it. And so if you're going to do politics, all you have to do is write a bunch of articles about political stuff with people who directed towards people who agree with you, and make your author community people who agree with you. So if you're kind of a left-winger, you write a bunch of articles that are left-wing political, and then connect it to your book. Try to write some things that connect it to the themes of your book, and people will buy the book because they feel like they're supporting their political cause that they like to. So anyway, the last strategy, this is an old one. Give your book away to gain followers on your mailing list. Frankly, I mean, I still do it. You can get a free book by joining my mailing list right now. dvspress.com/free-book. You get a free copy of Demon Ex Machina, a book that I came out with this year, and boom, you can join my mailing list that way. And that way, what do I do with my mailing list? When I do something, I mail people about it. Like if I come out with a new book or a new album, and so I can direct market to people, or just keep people posted on what I'm doing with the channel. Like I started a second channel. It's music only, no talking, no talking, just music. It's youtube.com/@Zulonline, ZULONLINE youtube.com/Zulonline. And so you can grab that. I'll link it down below. It's all just like my solo instrumental stuff, so you can check that out if you want. And so I'll probably make a mailing list thing this weekend, mail everyone, hey, there's this other channel. I'd like to get to my first milestone of 100 subscribers who like that kind of music. And if that music is not for you, that's okay. I don't need you to subscribe to my channel to not listen to my music. That's a waste of your time. But if you're into more ambient space music and all the instrumental stuff that I did on these 2 Zool albums, Memories Adrift and Return, well, that's the place where you're going to get to hear a whole lot more of what I've been doing with that. So yeah, that's what I use my mailing list for. Giving away a book is frankly not enough now. Everyone gives away a book. There's a million free books. I like to do it because I think it's an extra little bonus. It's like, hey, you want a zero buy-in to see if the work is good, and if you like it, and if you like me, then boom, just join the mailing list and get a free book. But the free book alone will not attract enough people, because there's lots of free books. There's free books on Amazon, and 99 cents for a book on Amazon, people are not afraid to spend $1 on a book that they're interested in reading. So your free book thing, it's just kind of a value add. It's not a big sell to get readers attracted to you. It's like it's kind of like a necessary extra buy-in, but it will not build your list on its own. You got to have more than that. You got to have an appeal to people in general. And so politics is an easy way to do that. Things like that. Another way to build an audience is with submissions to short fiction magazines like Cursova, which I haven't talked too much on the channel, but I should do some more reviews of like the Cursova magazines and some of the stories that are in them, because there's a lot of cool stuff there, and there may be authors that you really like that are in the magazine. So you find one, you like him, you look him up, and you look up his other stuff. That's the best way to sell it. It's like, whoa, I liked this story. I want to see what else this person wrote because it's really unique. So that's a great way to build an audience if you can get into the magazines. It takes a long time because there's a lag between acceptance and publishing, right? So anyway, those are some strategies for building an audience. There's no one set way to do it, and you should try as many as you can. Now let me get to the last thing, which is managing your career. There's a couple things that you need to know as a new author. The first one is that your first book will suck. The first time you do anything, you're going to be bad at it. So your first draft, especially if your first book, is going to be bad. And what I usually recommend people, they're like, how do I edit my first book? I'm like, what you should probably do is, you're not going to physically do this probably, but take it out and put it in a drawer for a year. Just take it out and put it in a drawer, because you won't even know really what's bad about it until you have gotten the suck out. I don't know how many words it takes to stop sucking. Let's say 1 million words. That's a lot of words, right? Now you add that up between lots of stuff. You'd be writing blog articles, you'd be writing books and short stories, and you'll get to 1 million words before you know it. But you need to write at least one extra book before you start to try to edit your first book, because you won't even know what you're doing at that point. So yeah, your first book is going to suck. It's probably not going to excite the audience or be good enough for them. So the easiest way to get better is just to write more. Get that 1 million words out. The other thing about your career is you need to publish multiple books. So the question on Twitter was like, how do I build momentum going into my first book? Really, you should ask, how do I build momentum going into my 10th book? Because it's just like, you're not going to have a very good audience from one book unless you have just a ton of outside support, like your Patrick Rothfuss, and you have like Trad Publishing pushes your book everywhere, and then you can write one other book and never do anything and have a D&D podcast and survive on that somehow. That's not typical. What's typical is that you have to have a body of work before anybody takes you seriously. If you have 10 books that are written, then that person is a lot more likely to look at any book like, oh, this is an author, he knows what he's doing. It's a bunch of little checks, little proofs that the book might be worth to even click on and see what it is. So you want to have a body of work. And if you make a fan, whether you're like publishing a short story or you're publishing a book, the worst thing that can happen is someone's like, I love this author, I wonder what else they wrote. Nothing, right? You want to have like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 other books that the person can go buy and then, get money from them. So you want to have a lot of things for the fan to buy. That's a good economic decision, and it's a great way to make a fan. You always want to have their attention by having content out there. If you're not doing blog articles and stuff, you're not going to keep their attention that long. If you're not connecting with them on social media in some other way, you're not going to have their attention long enough. They're going to forget about you by the time the next book comes out. They won't remember your name. They won't remember how much they liked the book. So yeah, you want to build up a body of work as good as you can. And to that end, I also suggest writing shorter books. One of the things I set out to do a couple years ago was to master the short novel between like 20,000 and 50,000 words. A very popular length in the first half of the 20th century, kind of fell off after that because of some changes to the publishing industry, which we don't need to get into. But with Kindle, I can publish anything of any length. So I love writing books that are 20 to 50,000 words. People can read it in 1 or 2 days, leave a review, enjoy it, pick up the next one, and just kind of go with it that way. A lot of people adopt the 20 books to 50K approach, which is to try to write like a really long series in a micro niche, like 20 books, and then people click through and buy. And that is a good strategy, but that's not one I use because I don't want to be that person. I don't want to write a 20 book long soap opera. I don't want to write soap operas in a micro genre, which is what you're doing with that. And I'm just not interested in doing that. I can do lots of other things to get money besides writing books that I don't care about. I have other skills in this life. So anyway, temper that and keep that in mind. You want to keep in mind, as far as expectations go, there's not a lot of money in publishing. So you shouldn't expect to be a millionaire unless you hit the lottery. And you may hit the lottery, right? You're buying a lottery ticket when you publish a book, whether it's traditional or it's independently published, however you want to do it. You're kind of buying a lottery ticket for a whole lot of effort, and chances are you're not going to win. So it's really good if you can think about prosperity outside of money. That is, I have artistic goals. I have fulfilled my artistic goals, and I have reached an audience that has enjoyed my product and gotten the message and the feelings that I wanted to communicate to them. They have received those and enjoyed them. That's, to me, like the total artistic satisfaction. Yeah, and getting paid for that, at least nominally, getting a little bit of money for that feels really good. Like, I made a little bit of money doing it. I didn't lose money making my art. So yeah, think about things in a broader sense besides like, I need to make this my career. It takes a long time to build a career, and chances are you're not going to be able to do this full time. Most of the big authors that you may think about, you could think of like J.R.R. Tolkien. He was never like a full-time novelist. Like, he had a day job his whole life, until he retired. And there's lots of other authors that fit into that category. They were teachers or they had some other career. And it's pretty rare that you can be a professional writer. It's a very rare opportunity if you're able to do it. But if it happens, great. You've done all the things to build up that career, and you have the opportunity to make that a career. That is amazing. But temper your expectations and be like, this is something that I am doing not just to try to make money, but to build. I'm building a thing, and the fact that I'm not having overnight success doesn't mean that I'm bad at it or that I should quit or things like that. So anyway, take it easy. This has been a kind of a long career advice video, but I got all the topics that are in there. I talked about them in depth. I have even deeper videos on technical advice and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you're subscribed, and I'll have more information on all that kind of stuff as we go along. And I have I have a huge back catalog of videos for how to write, how to edit, how to publish your book, how to design covers, how to format covers, how to format the interior of your book, all the stuff that you need to know to publish a book. And once you have those skills, guess what? You can just carry them forward and do it again and do more and more books and then build a career out of it, hopefully. Or at least like a side hustle, which is really what it is for me these days. I'd say the business has definitely gotten harder than it used to be, and so we have to look outside of the channels that were successful 10 years ago. Like, get your book on Amazon and advertise it this certain way and you'll make money. It's like that doesn't happen anymore. You need to think a little bit more outside the box than that. Anyway, guys, have a great one. I'll see you all next time. Join my mailing list, dvspress.com/list or dvspress.com/free-book, and you can get a free copy of Demon Ex Machina. And check out my No Talkie Talkie music only channel, linked down below in the description box. Have a great one. Take it easy.